This is what breaking your wrists looks like. If you're going to break anything on a skateboard, it'll most likely be your wrist. In the sudden moment of falling, your first instinct might be to reach your hand out to brace for impact, but that just focuses all that landing force into one area. That's the wrong way to fall. Now for the right way.
When we try a trick, falling is baked into it. The best way to fall is to spread out the fall over time and space. All right. We didn't want you to fall, but now we got the clip of you falling, so that's good.
Yeah, right.
Skateboarders come in all shapes and sizes. I think that there's pros and cons to different body types, like the shorter skaters. I think they have a lower center of gravity, so they might be able to do more technical tricks, have that control. Whereas a taller skater, I mean, pretty much every obstacle is gonna feel a little bit smaller.
Tony Hawk was like pretty tall.
Yeah, Tony Hawk would be an example of like a taller skater that was definitely very good at, manipulating the board in the air and everything on the ramps.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
I was gonna cry if you didn't see that one.
As a skater, you might gravitate towards different kinds of tricks based on your body type. I know I'm the shorter end of things, so maybe I would shy away from jumping down like really big sets of stairs because they would just seem really, really scary to me, where I might focus more on like technical combinations, being able to twist, and I think my lower center of gravity really helped that because relative to the board, I was closer to it.
There are definitely more skaters in the spotlight these days who are a little on the larger build, especially upper body. Like, yeah, Jamie Foy is bigger, but who's that one dude?
He was in the Olympics, right?
Yeah, he was in the Olympics.
Cardano
Russell or something.
Yeah, I know one downside to being like a taller, like more muscular, heavier skateboard would be that they break boards all the time, like jumping down things. If you're just off a little bit, if you want to land with your feet on the bolts, but if you're just off by a little bit and you've got that extra weight, you're just snapping boards.
Just that pressure point. Yeah, I mean, that's something for me personally. I haven't broken too many boards in the many years of skating, probably because I haven't, just don't weigh as much.
Skateboards can typically hold around 200 pounds or 90 kilograms of standing weight, with longboards bearing 250 pounds on average. They're primarily made from 7 to 9 layers of maple wood, which has a tight grain structure that makes it ideal for resisting impacts. But on higher impacts, like when you ollie, you're generating more weight, nearly 4 times your body weight, adding stress not only to the board, but to your lower limbs as well. We'll be getting to that later when we talk body parts.
Visibly, I see more of a variety, because traditionally it's been like, lankier and maybe like lighter was better, but
thinking of a skater like being like very lean, just like skating all day and that like cardio, just like burning so many calories and not taking a break and just being like really lean, maybe more like a Bruce Lee physique.
On a more general level, I think every skateboarder should try to stretch a bit. I think there is more of a focus on like improving your fitness outside of the skate park, meaning like, going to the gym.
Back in the day, we would say training for skateboarding was basically just skateboarding all day. Because with skateboarding, you're not just doing the tricks and things you see, but we're also skating from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And I think even to this day, there's skaters out there that if you ask them, what do you do to train to skateboard? They would say, I just go skate, man. Skating all around, like New York City, for example, spots all over. You spend the whole day skating from point A to point B. That in itself is a workout. Even when you're there, you're kind of warming up with your tried and true tricks over and over again, just repetition. So this is my skateboard. We've got, the board itself is made out of wood. On the top, it's covered with this grip tape, this black stuff. It's almost like sandpaper that your feet grip to. Underneath, these are the trucks. and on the trucks to the wheel assembly. The truck actually bends a bit, so that's how when we're riding and we push on our toe or heel, the board will carve. And then we've got our wheels with the bearings inside there. And if you look at the board, we've got two kicktails. This is the back, we call that the tail, and the front kicktail we actually call the nose. So we have the nose and the tail of the board. When we're standing on a skateboard, you can look down and even though you can't see the trucks, you can see the bolts that attach the trucks to the board. And so we always tell people just learning the skateboard, you want to make sure you put your feet over the bolts. That's so important in skateboarding that when you see someone land a trick like really well, you might say bolts as like a compliment. Behind that, we've got the kicktail. So if you were going to be doing any kick turns or any other tricks, that's where you get leverage here. So you put your weight back. You can pop your tail. You can spin it around. So there's all different ways to manipulate the board there. Wow, buttery. Yo! Steezed out on that one. The first one was buttery and the second one was
good.
That was good. As you can see from my board, we also use different parts of the board besides the wheels to do different tricks. So when we're on our wheels, that's just riding the skateboard, but we could do tricks where we're sliding on the wooden part. That would be a board side or a nose side, tail side. And then you could also see on the trucks, they've been ground down a bit from doing different kinds of grinds on obstacles such as rails or ledges, things like that. My board has a bit of wear. I've had it for about a month. I think that's about a month of wear. Actually, not too much wear for a month, but. The most important part of the body might be what you're doing with your core on a skateboard, because everything is connected to that.
That's a good point.
Certainly feet, legs, ankles, that's important, your arms, but kind of like where you are in relation to where your skateboard is really important, especially in the beginning. It's one of the pivotal things we'll say is, bring your core down, or if you're going to be doing a turn, you want to have your weight back, finding your center, and then moving around that is going to be really important. If you were to go up the ramp and keep your center of gravity in the same exact place, you're going to quickly have your weight off and over the board and slip back. So you're always kind of shifting your weight back and forth, kind of in coordination with your knees. It's almost like playing catch with your own weight, because you let your board go out and then come back and then you keep going. It's this delicate balance.
That really comes into play when you learn how to pump.
When you drop into a half pipe, gravity gives you potential energy, which turns into kinetic energy as you descend. But with friction and air resistance slowing you down, it'll only get you so far before you lose height and stop altogether. If you bend your knees and push into the floor here, you're using your own body to add to your energy pool. If on the other side you bring your body up, you're adding even more energy to propel you into the air.
It's very similar to, learning how to swing, like on a swing set by yourself. You're using that momentum where you go back, you're bringing your legs up, and then as you're coming down, releasing that tension by just straightening out your legs and pushing them out in front of you is what kind of propels you and gives you that momentum. And it's very similar to, when you're on this ramp, you can go back and forth and back and forth. And when you figure out how to really use your knees to your advantage to help you kind of retain the same amount of speed or even go faster, it's fun. And
when kids, once they learn how to do it and keep themselves going, 20 minutes later,
they can't get off. They're on this all day. Especially with pro skaters, or even anybody really who's been skateboarding for a very long time, it's often your knees that start to feel just the weight of all that, repetition and jumping down stuff over the course of time. When we're skating, we're starting out by always keeping our knees slightly bent, because that way we have a bit of a buffer if we need to go up. A lot of times when people are first starting, they might stand with their feet very straight, but then if you hit a little crack, you'll fall right over. Yeah.
With your knees bent a little bit, you have that bounce. And so a lot of times on a skateboard, even when we're not jumping, we're applying weight to the board or we're de-weighting, and we're doing that primarily through our knees. Also, any trick where you are leaving the ground and coming back to it, your knees are the most important part of shock absorption, so you have to be able to absorb that impact. If you were to land with your knees straight, you're going to get all that force up through your body, and it's going to start to, you're going to start to feel it pretty quick.
Yeah, in that sense too, like your knees sort of act as springs, right?
When you ollie, you're generating nearly 4 times your body weight for the impact. With that stress going to your lower limbs, you need to rely on your foot bones and soft tissue to absorb and distribute that force. Unlike basketball, where you'll absorb shock on your vertical foot arches, skateboarders use a flat transverse arch, leaving the metatarsals to absorb the force.
I'm constantly on the balls of my feet, you know, so I use my toes, you know, it helps me feel a little more like nimble.
Metatarsals 2 to 4 absorb the majority of the force, with the 4th metatarsal taking the most stress, about 29 times the pressure of a car tire.
For a lot of tricks, kind of the first step is thinking of foot placement. Like if I was helping a friend with a move, or a student with a move, it's where do you put your feet? Like the foot placement, like beginning and end of the trick is kind of your connection to the board.
You're constantly trying to coordinate between, you know, how much weight you're distributing between your toes and your heels.
Next to the skateboard, one of the most important pieces of skate gear are the sneakers that we wear. A lot of times people starting off on skateboards might show up with like a pair of normal like running shoes like this, but there's a couple things that make this not as easy to skate with. And one is the sole is actually very grippy. And so when you're skating, you have too much grip and you want to be able to move your foot around on the skateboard. And the other thing is that the extra padding gives you less what we call board feel. So when you have your foot on the board, you want to be able to kind of feel the curvature and shift your foot around to different positions. So that's why when you see skate sneakers, you see this very flat, universal, grippy sole surface there, so that you can grip when you're standing and applying pressure, but you can easily move things around. Also, you can see the parts on the side are also grippy, so that when you're doing things like ollies or kickflips, you're able to grip the grip tape and not rip your shoes too much. And also the soles are very thin, so you get that very curvy like this. But as the skaters age, we realize that wearing these all day starts to hurt, so you might find skaters putting on their skate shoes and then during the day, like these are my personal shoes, so I'll wear these here and then change into these for skateboarding. Maybe in like California in the bowls, you see people skating without shoes. Of course that's gonna like cause some issues with the grip tape rubbing against the toe knuckles and stuff, but yeah, wouldn't advise it. A lot of times people don't think much about the arms when they're first skating, but then when we explain it, the arms don't weigh a whole lot, but you can get them very far from your center of gravity, and you can twist them around, so you can take advantage of that to get the centrifugal force. A lot of times when we are doing a spinning move or a turning move, it starts from our shoulders and arms kind of leading that. If you watch skateboarding, you're looking at the skateboard, the lower body, but a lot of the trick is being done actually by the arms, kind of winding and unwinding, and they serve as counterbalances for the tricks you're doing. So if you're really far to this side, you might have your arms this way to balance the weight out, and then vice versa. If you wanted to come back this way really quickly, you can swing your arms to kind of keep that balance.
Yeah, there's just constant negotiation between your upper body and your lower body. So like, you know, for a lot of tricks that involve rotating your skateboard and your body, like if you're doing a 180, for example, you know, you'd lead with your upper body, so up here with your shoulders, and you know, naturally, that makes your body feel a little awkward, like you're twisted up. And so your lower body is gonna wanna realign with your upper body. And so you always lead up here, and then the lower body is just very naturally gonna follow through.
The thing I always tell students is, look where you wanna go.
Yeah.
It sounds obvious, but a lot of times when you're skating, you might be kind of one step behind as far as where your head is looking. One example I would give is as you're going up a ramp. If you're just going up a ramp and coming back down the way you came, we would call that going back to fakie. I always say, as you're going up, you start to look back, because that's actually where you're gonna go. Once you've kind of figured out what you need to do with your body, then you wanna spot where you're heading, especially if you were going back and forth on a mini ramp like this. You're doing the trick, you're looking at the next kind of spotting where you're about to go. Also when you're skating down the street, even just from point A to point B, you wanna make sure that you're kind of looking a little bit ahead for any kind of obstacles that are in your way. A lot of times it could be an uneven crack, or even if it's a smooth ground, if you hit a little pebble, we call it a stop rock. we have very hard, small wheels that wedges there, and it stops you in your track. Even the most experienced skater, you look back and you see that, the telltale.
You almost never see those coming.
So when you're first starting skating and you're kind of like getting used to pushing around, getting comfortable turning, you're going to want to learn how to ollie, which is the trick that's going to get you up into the air. And the way the ollie works is basically we are standing on the board with our front foot towards the middle of the board and our back foot out by the tail like this. And then we start the trick by getting low, and then at the moment we jump up, we kick the tail to the ground. Oh, that was awful.
Dude, it's hard, right? Doing an ollie stationary.
It's so bad. It's so weird stationary. You're kicking the tail, but really the better word to use that we would say is snap the tail or pop the tail, because it's a really quick motion and it's happening as your whole body is already jumping up. So your body is off, it's de-weighting, it's up in the air, and at the last second you snap the tail, which then catapults the board into the air like this. Your front foot goes to the side and starts to pull up the board additionally and also level it out. And then the board and you are going up, and then the board and you go down. You're not actually pulling the board up, you're kind of catapulting it as you're on top of it. It's this motion right here. We call this the ollie board, and it's basically a skateboard with these rubber platforms on, and then that helps isolate the motion of the wheels so that they can really focus on that snapping motion. I might have a student get comfortable just bringing the board up and down. So that's one drill. The next drill is stepping down and getting the foot sideways like this. Get comfortable like this. And then you can kind of start to jump and pop. So you're just getting the pop. And then you put it all together.
Nice.
But the trick everyone wants to know if they're getting into skating is the kickflip. It used to be called an ollie kickflip, now we just call it a kickflip. When you're taking that front foot sliding up, instead of just sliding up and leveling off, you're sliding up and then flicking the toe side and making the board flip, and then you catch it back. It's a bit of magic. It feels really awesome when you land it. There's no practical purpose for doing a kickflip outside of an ollie, but it is just the coolest thing. A lot of students, when they're first getting into skating, that's the trick they want to learn.
That's
and
the first
so
thing.
an ollie, getting a really solid ollie is essential to getting to the kickflip. Yeah.
That was better.
That felt better, right? Yeah.
I'll take that one, I think.
Yeah. So skaters are their own worst critics. Like you might have seen. I saw Simon ollie that first try and then 4 times in a row, but you could see him shaking his head. His back foot was floating a little bit. He just didn't like the way it felt, but that last one, I think after a few times he got
yeah, I think it felt a little better that time.
Yeah, cleaned it up.
It just feels better, you know. We're kind of going into earlier about how there's ways to land tricks that are more desirable than others. He mentioned landing bolts, right? So there were a couple there where I felt like I was landing a little bit a little odd.
The trick is what the board is doing, but the style is what the body is doing.
Yeah,
so
we kind of went back.
Every time the board went over, so it was an ollie. But the way that he interacted with the board was different.
Oh. All right, let me say more.
That was good. Was that the best one?
I'll take that.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
There's a funny thing in skateboarding where they say kickflip is the hardest trick. Once you learn how to do all these other advanced tricks, 360 flips and whatever, people often neglect the kickflip.
Another game we play a lot for training, I guess you could call it training in a way, but just for fun, is a game of Skate, which is similar to a game of horse. Yeah, horse with a basketball where you're shooting balls, where we just find a friend and you take turns trying tricks. And most of the time I'm playing it, it's really just that competitive element just raises the stakes just a little bit, but it's really just an excuse to try tricks that you might not normally try.
Skateboarding remains an understudied sport in the academic world, so the average rate of injury can vary. A study between 1987 to 1998 showed a rate of 8.9 injuries per 1,000 participants, while a survey of 197 skaters in 2020 showed just 0.55 injuries per 1,000 hours of skating.
One of the most common ways someone is going to get injured on a skateboard is if they're falling off while they're trying something and then bracing for impact instead of staying loose while they fall. In the moment you fall, you go into fight or flight and you stiffen up, and before you know it, you're taking that impact on one joint instead of being able to spread it out. So you want to keep the momentum going. A lot of times that means bailing the board and keeping going. If you're going to hit a point, you try to spread the impact, so you're going to roll or compress. So if you're landing on the ground, you might need to roll or hit multiple points. So if I'm falling down, instead of just reaching out like this, I might want to hit multiple points, and it kind of spreads it out and then minimizes the impact to any particular joint. If you're skating a lot and taking a lot of impact, that does end up having an impact on your entire musculoskeletal system. I do know that there are skaters with like back pain or knee pain, maybe not specifically from one particular impact, but just from the repetitive use.
In a 2021 study of 64 skaters, the lumbosacral region was right behind the knee and ankle in the most frequent areas of pain at 16.5%. All areas of the body that take the most stress from impacts.
If you think of skateboarding too, even just the motion of pushing on a skateboard is asymmetric. So after a whole day of skateboarding, one of your hips, depending on your stance, is going to be a little lower. So skating feels great, but then when you start to walk after a long day of skating, you kind of wobble a bit. Over days and months and years of that, there could be more of like a chronic pain that would build up from that. One of the ways to combat that is to skate switch stance, which is skating in your other stance. You can try tricks that counterbalance each other. You can spread that out so that you're not like having that excessive strain on certain parts of your body. Skateboarding, for better or worse, we do have a rap for having injuries, and so we've affectionately named a few. I know one, if you bang your elbow and it swells up, we call that a swellbow. Or there's names for injuries such as hippers, shinners. We've got shark bites when a board hits you. There's also the credit card, which you can imagine this part and landing in a certain way, which is definitely paints a picture. In skating on rails, there is a sacking the rail. You can imagine. Yeah, another injury I forgot to mention. So if you're going really fast, so if you're bombing a hill, that's what we call it, going down a hill, you might end up falling or flying off your board, and then you get some pretty bad road rash from the abrasion there. So skateboarding has a reputation for having a lot of injuries, but in fact, over the course of a career, it's very similar to other very active sports such as basketball or soccer. One thing I think that is different with skateboarding is that a lot of the injuries are it's your fault. It's you and the board, and that there are a lot of injuries that can happen right in the beginning, and I do know that first couple times skateboarding is critical, because if you're putting your feet together, there's a lot of, like, I guess you could say, rookie mistakes that are going to cause you to fall right away. It's a bit difficult to get even the speed up or the ability to be able to jump off of something big enough to hurt yourself, that it's self-limiting in a way, because by the time you've gotten to the point of, say, jumping down a 3-stair, you've fallen so many times up to that point that you've kind of become comfortable with it. There's a way there that you could kind of think like the risk in it is kind of balanced by the difficulty of skateboarding in itself. I think learning how to skateboard could generally be difficult because it's not something you can pick up right away, but I think that difficulty is what keeps us coming back to it. For myself, after 30 years of skating, I'm still learning new things and finding new challenges in it. There's always something new. Like I was saying, in skateboarding, falling is a given. We're going to fall as we try, or fall or bail, but as that's happening, you're learning more about it. And you might even be trying one trick, and in the process of trying that, accidentally do something else and stumble upon another area. And so you're kind of unlocking different tricks along the way.
The trick is what the board is doing, but the style is what the body is doing. When the board feel is right, and your feet are aligned with the bolts, you move as one. There's no telling where the board ends and your body begins.